All right, there we go. Well, hello to my two fans out there. This is the Gap Bookmarker, where I basically give you what amounts to a book report on a book that I've just read. And I have to say, I really blew through this one. This is James Gleick's Time Travel: A History. And ever since I was a kid, I've been obsessed. Well, maybe not as a kid, but when I was a kid, I found my grandmother's egg timer, and I flipped it over, and I was just fascinated at how the sand went down, and it just kind of captured my imagination for time. And when you grow up and you start seeing stuff about time travel, like the movies and all this other stuff, it just kind of really captured my imagination. You see it a lot in comic books, you see it a lot in science fiction shows like Star Trek and everything. And just really captured my imagination and never ever let it go. So, of course, when I saw this book featured in the Week magazine, I had to search out immediately. It's massively dog-eared. I found a lot of passages that I really enjoyed in here, and dog-eared the pages. But James Gleick's Time Travel: A History. What is it about? Well, basically, it's how the idea has changed our culture, time travel as a concept. And he lays it all at the feet of H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. And rightfully so, because think about the time that it was written. It was the late 1800s. We're on the threshold of a new century. The Industrial Revolution is in full swing. And people are kind of nervous about what this new technology is going to mean for our society, mean for how things will be done, how people will interact, all of it. It's just, up until the Industrial Revolution, we're basically an agrarian society. Now you had factories, you had technology that had people moving to the cities. It was a time of huge cultural upheaval. So of course that anxiety translated into what the Parisians called la fin du siècle, the end of the century. And right around that time you had the writings of Jules Verne and H.G. Wells kind of looking into the future. A lot of futurists were also looking into the future too. It's playing croquet underwater, sending rockets to the moon. We'd have cities in domes. I mean, no concept was too nuts for the futurists of the late 19th century. So when H.G. Wells basically penned a story about the time traveler who could actually travel through time, it really kind of made quite a huge splash. Maybe not at first, but it was a science fiction tale. It's what it's supposed to be, but science fiction is speculative fiction, which means it gets you thinking. It also starts ideas flowing. So after H.G. Wells' story, after all the reviews and criticisms went away, it started influencing scientists and everything else. You have to remember, up until that point, time travel only took place in dreams and in visions, and this was a time traveler physically going through time and seeing what becomes of humanity. And as the years went on, logicians, mathematicians, philosophers, they all took up the challenge of proving or disproving time travel and what its ramifications would be. Of course, other writers took whacks at it. Pardon that little halo there, it's a light reflection. And it's not coming off my bald head, believe it or not. Other writers took whacks at it, of course, like Isaac Asimov and Robert Heinlein. Of course, by his bootstraps, that kind of thing. Which I've never read. I'm ashamed to say it. I love time travel. I have quite a big shelf of time travel material on my shelf. I call it my time travel shelf. Which this will be going on. But I haven't read every single piece of work or seen every single movie about it. I don't think it's possible. I have other interests too. But anyway, I'm just going to sit up here because that glare is bothering me. There we go. He runs through all the different physics. James Gleick runs through all the different physics and all the different ideas that influenced our perception of time. He even tries to define it. What is time? It's a very slippery definition. It's easier to say what it's not. It's easier to compare it to a river or other metaphors like that. It's a river, it's a measure, it's a slice of a whole, that kind of thing. We have problems really, really conceptualizing time as a whole. What is the fourth dimension? What does it look like? What do we look like in the fourth dimension? Because what you're looking at right now is basically a cross-section of a second of my entire fourth dimensional being. From birth to death, in 4 dimensions, I probably look like this gigantic millipede with 100 hands, like this little baby, and all the way over here, this old man who eventually dies. And everything in the middle is what I look like between the 2 points as one gigantic whole. And that's a lot to get. A lot of people have problems with that concept. But the sobering thing about this book, I don't want to say depressing, but it's kind of sobering. He ended it, I don't know, why does time travel fascinate us so much? Well, the short and brutal answer is it's because our fear of death. We'd like to go explore, we'd like to go see, I would like to go check out Victorian England. We'd like to see, well, ancient Rome. We'd also like to go into the future to see how things might possibly happen, because then you get into theoretics, like which possible future are you visiting. But yeah, it's basically what the fascination behind time travel is, the fear of death, really, because we only have so much time on this earth, and time travel feeds into the whole, it feeds into the regret thing, it feeds into the possibilities not realized thing, the lost potential. What if I had taken that path instead of this path? Writers like to explore that. And then, of course, you've got the whole paradox thing. The paradoxes, the grandfather paradox, and do you create a new timeline or do you just rewrite time itself? All this gets discussed in that book. And but that fear of death thing was actually, well, it's pretty sobering because, none of us are getting any younger, and eventually you're going to take that last breath. And time travel is sort of a escapist way to divert yourself from it, really. And, I have to admit, especially now in this day and age, time travel is a really big thing now. It's a big moneymaker on television and in entertainment. You've got, let's just reel them off. You've got Doctor Who, one of my personal favorites. I've been a fan since I was in high school, since '83 or so. You've got Doctor Who, you've got DC's Legends of Tomorrow, you've got Timeless, you've got 12 Monkeys, which you should be watching if you want a really serious look at time travel and the cause and effect thing. Also, as far as cause and effect goes, if you want a really good illustration about the narrative fun you can have with cause and effect, or effect and cause, not in that order, check out Doctor Who's episode Blink. It features the Weeping Angels, probably the best science fiction villain since the Borg, Star Trek's the Borg, or the Daleks. And the concept behind that is the Weeping Angels, they're statues. They don't move if you're looking at them, but if you blink or look away, that's when they can move to get you. When they're standing still, you can't kill them, you can't affect them. But if they touch you, you get blasted back into time a certain amount of time. And they live off your energy they live off of the potential energy that you would have had you lived in this time period or something like that. Who would ever be afraid of statues, you'd ask, but it's a pretty effective episode. But aside from the scares, it deals with timey-wimey, like one person vanishes only to get, and her friend gets a letter the second that she vanishes from, like, that was written about almost 100 years ago, because she wants to contact her friend in that house that she remembers disappearing from, like 90 years earlier from her viewpoint. It's really mind blowing. It's the best. It's the coolest, most head bending time travel episode, 1 hour you'll ever spend. So Doctor Who. The episode is called Blink. Check it out. The Doctor is barely in it, so it won't be too confusing. But it's just a really fun story, and kind of scary too with those Weeping Angels. But anyway, I digress. I also forgot to mention Outlander. Outlander's it's a Scottish historical novel time travel thing, which Starz has just started putting out. And I just started reading that again. They're not really too heavy into the time travel, except to get Claire back to 18th century Scotland, and basically how she affects things back there. Just good stuff. It's very realistically written. Another point I'd like to make here is that the author, James GLEICK, also makes a comparison to how we view the future. And he basically says the future is dead because it's always now. Back right around the turn of the 20th century, the future was ahead of us. All of our technological accomplishments, all these frontiers had to be conquered. You had the West pretty much conquered by that point. You had science fiction writers looking into space, looking at landing on the moon, all these technological advances they were envisioning. Whereas now, we've got self-driving cars going on. We've got, contact lenses you can perhaps download your own pictures to, right from your own contact lens. I can't see that coming for another 5-10 years or so. But the point is, it's always now. The internet has killed time and distance for us. So you don't know when you got that last message from somebody. It could have been 3 seconds ago. It could have been 3 weeks ago. You don't know. We're in a constant state of looking up stuff in the now. We've all, as a society, have stopped looking forward. And because the future's here, and it doesn't seem like we really want to go any further. If anything, history keeps recycling itself, especially on a pop culture level and a fashion level and everything else. The music, take a look at television, for God's sake. I love the series, but Stranger Things. That's a whole love letter to Steven Spielberg and John Carpenter, Stephen King, that sort of thing. It's very, very retro. The movie Drive, very much the same way. But this has always been happening. But as we get closer, as we edge further into the millennium, we seem to take more and more comfort from the past. I could also be speaking as a middle-aged male, too. There is that as well. But it just seems like the future as a concept and our sense of possibility about the future is kind of stalled right now. And like I said, he addresses that particular crossroads in history we're at. It also leads me to remind you about another book I read once upon a time. I believe it's from Douglas Rushkoff, called Present Tense. And it addresses that very, very problem. It's always now. The past isn't really... the future is ignored. The past, the very far past is pretty much... If it happened more than a month ago, we're probably going to forget about it because our 24-hour news cycle is always bombarding us with the latest thing from every single media angle. So, it's just something to consider. And it's pretty interesting that he begins it. Time travel as a concept was the real big ground zero for that was H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. I mean, he literally credits it for that, introducing the concept into popular thought. But you have to wonder what H.G. Wells would think of today's society and how we're basically living in the Matrix right now. We're always checking our emails, our texts, our social media feeds. You could also speculate that machines themselves are kind of grooming us for the singularity that's coming, or maybe coming. The singularity is basically when maybe I'm getting this wrong, but when artificial intelligence will be released, when man and machine actually merge together, when you won't be able to recognize reality from virtual reality or technology from humanity. It's a real big buzzword amongst a lot of techno-savvy people. The future is going to be perfect. It's all information, all computers, and humanity will have to basically adapt itself to coexist with the computer. And who knows? We could be like proto-Borgs right now. I mean, what comes next? Do we put implants in our heads, and do we get the internet directly downloaded into our brain? I don't know. That's another subject. That's another book to read. But anyway, I just wanted to say, if you have any interest about time travel as a concept at all, please pick up James GLEICK, James GLEICK's books, Time Travel History. It's very very layman friendly. It goes by very quickly. And like I said, if you've ever been interested in time travel as a concept at all, if you've seen Back to the Future and loved it, which I do, I have to see the whole trilogy at least once a year, then pick it up. You will not be sorry. And This thing actually goes for an hour too, which I love. Every time I see it and it's empty, I just have to flip it over because it's a compulsion. If money were no object, I'd have an entire den full of these things, of varying sizes and everything. I wonder what a 24-hour clock would look like. Would it be something that you'd have to like hand crank? Because think of this amount of sand multiplied times 24. That'd have to be a pretty big hourglass, 24-hour glass. But I'm digressing again. Folks, take care. Hope you have a good day, and thanks for listening. Have a good one.